So I do not know what our theme is. It's just
And we'll have
gonna,
to discover it as we go a little bit.
yeah, discover it as we go. And first thing I thought about was your song that you made. I'm pulling it up now. As the tears go by.
Right, which is an old Rolling Stones song by Mick Jagger
Okay.
and Keith Richards, by
Okay.
the way, from the '60s. And I remember. So what about it were you thinking before I?
Oh yeah, just the inspiration. You just sent it to me, and I was really vibing to it, and I enjoyed the imagery as well. You know, because you it was centered around the pandemic right now. So I just was curious on the inspiration.
Right. I mean, it was like the mood of that song. First of all, it was if you listen to the original version, my version is, I don't know, I took it to a place which was kind of ethereal and spacey and dreamy a little bit. And it had, I don't know, I want to say pathos, but it had a sadness in it.
Hmm.
And but I mean like more of just a pensive existential sadness of some kind. I don't, and so 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 when I was making the arrangement, this was about 3 years ago, and then eventually I got it out of the can, and I thought, well, I'm in the pandemic here. I'm looking for some things to do to be distracting and to
Hmm.
to engage myself, which I think
Hmm.
is an important thing to do these times. And so I thought, well, I like this tone of this. I want to kind of go for the tone instead of being a perfection music piece.
Hmm.
I wanted to sort of go for that mood, that pathos that was in there. And so I started painting with the other instruments. I played the piano, I played the harmonica, I played this and that. And by the time I got it, I got this like kind of mood piece. It wasn't so much a great music piece as it was a mood piece. And so my wife actually looked at it, and she amassed she said this would go really good. And when we saw it with the pandemic montage of pictures,
Yeah.
it was wow.
Yeah. It
It's
was
like, oh
wow.
my God, it just it married each other very
Yeah.
well.
It was wow. When you mentioned the word pathos, what do you mean by that word pathos in
Oh
regards
boy, I
to
don't know if
music?
yeah, I don't know, like pathos. I never had to define it. I'm almost ready to look it up on my
Yeah, I
phone.
was about to do the same thing. Let's
But
do
I
that
mean,
together.
yeah, while you do that, I'll just say, I mean, it's just like the deeper life feeling of things, going through things. What does it say though?
Okay.
I'm curious because I
Okay.
use it all the time and I know what it means inside.
I get it. I get it. It's a noun, the quality or power in an actual life experience or in literature, music, speech, or other forms of expression of evoking a feeling of pity or sympathetic and kindly sorrow or compassion. So you used it perfectly.
Yeah, yeah. And so you can when you can feel the pathos in something,
Mm,
feel its depth. You feel the
mm,
a bigger human longing
mm,
or emotion in it. It's
mm.
kind of nice, and I think that's what music is. I mean, actually, it's an interesting topic in itself. Music is emotional communication, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it doesn't matter what form it's in. I mean, somebody's getting, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, pathos,
yeah,
love, happiness. It's emotions being communicated on some
yeah,
level that's beyond verbal,
yeah. And I
like
definitely,
like our art in general, I think.
absolutely, I definitely got that feeling too when listening to it. So thanks for the share. And you've been at this music thing. That's just a part of what you do and who you are, right?
No, it's interesting. When I went to become a social worker before I became a psychoanalyst, I became a
Love your
social.
t-shirt. Love your t-shirt.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I'm a social workers. We unite together.
Yes,
We stand
yes.
together. I love my social work roots actually. And when I became a social worker, the average age of people going into that school was 34 years old, which is interesting, because I think you already had a certain amount of life experience going in, so you could have empathy for other people because you'd been through some stuff. Although many people go in at 22 right after school and then they gain it that way. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong or
Hmm.
right in either way, but I'm just saying the average age was 34. And interestingly enough, the people that they took a lot of times had an artistic background in some form or another. And
Mm.
I guess I don't know whether it's because they channel something more intuitive or I'm not quite sure what the word would be, but I think you look at things in different angles. You're not afraid to turn something upside down and see what it might look like from that vantage
Mm.
point
Mm.
or this vantage point. And so you're able to you got to be able to hear. There's some book in the psychoanalytic literature. I've not read it, but I like the title and what it means. It's called Listening with the Third Ear. I think it's by
Mm.
Theodore Reich. And I'm not, I sound like I'm all, know
No,
all my
please,
stuff,
yeah, please.
but I think that third ear is an interesting idea, where just the sound of that word, that idea,
Yeah, it's
because
like a third eye, but for
right,
a
right,
different
right. And so
faculty.
it's like there's what's going on, and then there's what's going on with what's going on,
Yeah.
and that's always, or what's under the thing, under the thing.
Mm.
Those are a lot of the themes of psychotherapy and psychoanalysis, actually.
So before we continue, We're gonna take two steps back, and can you introduce your name and who you are and things like that real quick, so the audience can understand what's going on here.
All right, so I'm John Smith. I'm 22 years old. No, okay, all right. I'll
Mr.
be.
Smith, Mr. Smith. Oh, bang on the gavel.
Oh, wait a minute. I got the gavel.
There
Okay.
you go. You can't handle the truth.
Props are important, man. You got to have your props.
Yeah,
Okay, no. When you're doing it's interesting when you're doing the Zoom interviews, and I do a lot of therapy on Zoom right now, and because of the pandemic,
yeah,
I have found these little bit of props and humor, because we just did a little humor, right? And
yes,
that spontaneity is very important, because it's like with anything, it gives a common thing. You both hit a human moment together,
yes,
and
yes,
it opened up the possibilities instead of locking us into how
yes.
serious, and we gotta, it's like, oh, okay, we're in a new realm, and now we're open. That's like that new angle on art.
Yeah,
See,
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So
I get
okay,
it.
so I'm David Brandt, and I'm work out of Montclair, New Jersey, and I'm a psychotherapist, psychoanalyst. I'm eclectic in my orientation. I kind of am sort of active. I work with a lot of different populations, from people in recovery, couples are a particular specialty, and I work with a lot of individuals between the ages of, like 15 and 75 or 80.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I love working with young people and people that are directionally challenged or stuck.
Hmm.
And so that's more or less what I do. I'm in private practice. I work with families, groups, individuals, and couples. So,
Yeah, and you're also a musician
well, I was a
by
musician
hobby. By hobby.
by
Okay.
hobby. Yeah, I used to really actually do it professionally. We were in a
Oh,
band many years ago, and we got in a movie, and so
okay.
we had our little 30 seconds of fame.
Love it.
Um, but and then I eased out into it, and through other
What
experiences.
movie?
It was a movie. Well, I'm sharing this publicly. Wow. Well, it was the movie Fast Times at Richmond High.
Oh, what? Everybody knows that
1982.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's old, but who knew that it would become a cult classic at the time?
Yeah, definitely a cult classic.
And I was the leader of the prom band in that movie. But our band worked hard to get to that. We
Yeah.
were at Saturday night gigs in LA, and we were in that new wave scene, and
But you just stumbled upon it, or is something that you auditioned for, or
no, I had met somebody who was very influential in the movie, and they through a dating situation, and they were able to get us eventually set up for an audition, and there were a lot of people vying for that part. So I will say we won the audition, but we had really taken 7 or 8 years and honed ourselves as an original band, but we
Mhm.
couldn't play our music during that period. We had to play what was going to make money for the people making them.
Got it. I
The
got
So we did Willy Bully, and Sean Penn comes up and pushes me off the stage and says, "Hey, dude, I know that tune," and I push him back, and I
I
went
am
by the
gonna
name of.
go rewatch this movie now. I want you to know that.
Well, there's two scenes where we're in it. We're in it right before the prom, and then right after the prom, or right, there's it breaks, but our music is still going over the top. So we
I
get
love
paid
it.
by the musician union and SAG for, for every time that
Love
plays.
it.
So I got my lunch paid for this year.
You did. That's
One
sweet.
lunch.
That's sweet. So
But
now that we introduced who you are and what you're about and what you do, you were talking about. Excuse me if I overstepped, but it seemed like you were marrying um, therapy with art, and you was making that connection. Is that just is that something that you learned in postgraduate work, or is that something that's unique to you and your personality?
So, uh, hmm, that's a really good question. I mean, I think therapy is an art. I think, you know, I mean, probably being human is an art on some level,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, so there's an art, like there's a Zen of everything, there's an art of everything.
Mhm.
And so that's one level of an answer for you. But I didn't learn that in school so much. I mean, I think you could see who the artists were by how they taught and how they love what they do, or how they did what they did. And you saw sometimes there were people that were characters. Like I remember they always used to show everybody in my generation Salvatore Minuchin, which is a great family structural therapist, and he started the Structural School of Family Therapy in Philadelphia or something like that. And he was a character, but you know, so you'd see these videos, and nobody could do what he did. I mean, you had to be him to do it. So you'd walk in, he'd say, you sit over here, you sit over here. He had his, you know, European accent or South American accent. I don't know where he's from, but he, you know, he'd be doing things, and like you'd be studying it, like, well, you know, all the pundits would be studying it, like, well, he did this, and notice how he talked to that, and you know, there was a method to his madness, and you could certainly make a science, but you couldn't be him
Because it was
you
an
know what I'm
art for
saying?
him. It was unique to him and his
It was
personality.
yeah, personality and character, his character. And, you know, so, you know, if you tried to be him, I don't think it would be authentic. So I think then every therapist has to find their authentic self, and they have to find their authentic part of them that it speaks to. And I don't think that comes, you know, for any new therapist watching this, I don't think that comes overnight. That I think you have a little bit of maybe an artist in you, or some intuitive piece, or something that you feel like people have always come to you, or you know, it could be a number of different things that could lead you to feeling like you have a propensity for this career. But then eventually, I think it's a program of not everybody gets to this, but I think eventually you hone it. You identify here, you identify there, you use a little of this, and eventually you evolve, you know, your identity as a as a psychotherapist, or as a counselor, and you begin to use your stuff more naturally. That comes naturally, but you've learned along the way. Wow, if I do this, that's not so good, because I'm bringing my stuff onto here, or I'm making it about me instead of about them. So, you know, you have to learn what to exorcise, what to get out of you,
Yeah.
in
Not
order
transfer.
to, and then when you can find that artistic self, and you're already habituated to getting rid of the bad stuff, you know, then you're probably starting to be in the pocket of it.
Okay.
Satori. Success.